Welcome to the explainer. So before a single drop of fuel ever sees extreme pressure in the common rail, it has to survive this intense microscopic filtration gauntlet. Today, we're diving deep into the C175 engine platform to uncover exactly why the totally unglamorous low-pressure fuel system is actually your engine's absolute most critical protective shield. Let's get into it. We're talking maximum pressures up to 26,000 psi on this platform. Literally 26,000. And honestly, if you get the low pressure side wrong, you are going to destroy the most expensive precision machined parts in your entire fuel system way before you'd ever suspect them. You see, the low pressure side isn't just about moving liquid around. It is entirely about conditioning it perfectly. Think about the sequential journey of that fuel. The exact moment a drop gets pulled from the tank, it goes right through a primary separator, it gets pressurized by the transfer pump, and then it's shoved through a secondary filtration bank. Every single step of the way, it's being filtered, cleared of air, and analyzed before it's allowed anywhere near those high-pressure components. So the transfer pump and the priming tee pull fuel from the tank and bump it up to roughly 95 psi, or about 650 kilopascals. But here's the really important part. The primary separator on the suction side is actively removing the single most destructive element you could possibly introduce at extreme pressures, and that's water. Why does water matter so much? Well, unlike diesel fuel, water doesn't compress, and it definitely doesn't lubricate. If water makes it over to the high-pressure side, the resulting mechanical damage is just absolutely catastrophic. Then we hit the final physical barrier. These duplex fuel filters provide secondary and tertiary filtration all the way down to 4 microns. 4 microns! They're there to catch any microscopic particulate that somehow slipped past the primary stage. Because if these tiny 4-micron particles get through, they literally act like liquid sandpaper. They'll completely score the high-pressure pump components, or worse, permanently clog up the tiny orifices of your injector nozzles. Now, you might be wondering, who's watching all this? Well, there's a whole network of sensors mounted near the duplex filter base, and they act as the engine control module's constant surveillance system. The ECM isn't just blindly pumping fuel in the dark here. It's using these sensors to actively protect the engine in real time, constantly checking values against atmospheric pressure so its readings are absolutely dead-on accurate. And the absolutely crucial point to understand here is that the ECM constantly monitors something called the pressure differential, or delta P. This is just the measured difference between the fuel pressure going into the filter and the pressure coming out. The ECM really cares about delta P because a rising number simply means the filter is actively loading up with solid matter and contamination. It's basically a real-time health meter for your filter. But you know, pressure is really only half the story. Temperature matters immensely. The fuel transfer temperature sensor is always monitoring the heat of the fuel entering the system. Why? Because fuel density actually changes with heat. Hotter fuel is less dense. So to maintain incredibly accurate injection timing and to deliver the exact right volume of fuel for whatever the engine load is demanding, the ECM has to constantly correct its calculations based on that temperature data. Think of it kind of like pulling a perfect shot of espresso. Progressive water filtration is what actually protects a high-precision espresso machine. If you skip a stage or, say, use dirty water, you don't just get a really bad-tasting shot, you physically wreck the internal mechanics of the machine itself. Feeding the C175's high-pressure pump operates on that exact same principle, just with infinitely higher financial stakes. That progressive fuel filtration is what protects those precision-machined internals. So let's actually test this diagnostic logic with a real-world scenario. Say you're monitoring the system and you notice a slow, steady 6-week climb on a delta P gauge. Now contrast that with a sudden overnight spike. Which of those patterns is totally normal and which one points to a severe emergency? Take a second and just think about how contamination actually finds its way into a system. Okay, here's the breakdown. That slow 6-week climb, that's just normal, expected filter loading. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, catching everyday wear and tear. It really just means you're going to need a scheduled filter replacement pretty soon. But that sudden overnight spike, oh man, that is a massive red flag. That tells us there's an active contamination event happening right now. Maybe a huge amount of water or sediment just got sucked in from the fuel tank, or a seal upstream completely failed. That requires an immediate root cause investigation, not just a quick filter swap. Which brings us to a hard and fast rule for anyone operating or maintaining this platform. You absolutely must never ignore a restricted filter code and just reset it, hoping it magically goes away. Starving the high-pressure pump with a heavily restricted low-pressure supply guarantees cavitation damage. When the high-pressure pump tries to pull fuel that just isn't there, it creates localized low-pressure vapor bubbles. And when those bubbles violently implode, they physically tear the metal surfaces apart from the inside out. It's wild. Look, I know it might be tempting to think, hey, I'll just bypass this secondary filter housing for a quick test run just to see if the engine fires. Please do not do it. Bypassing this crucial protective shield, even for just a 5-minute test, introduces enough microscopic contamination to completely score the high-pressure pump's precision internals in a matter of hours. You will quite literally turn a 5-minute shortcut into a catastrophic 5-figure repair bill. Okay, so now that you understand exactly how we guarantee a rock-solid supply of perfectly clean, temperature-corrected fuel, you are totally ready to see how that fuel is transformed. In our next explainer, we're going to dive into how the Woodward high-pressure pump takes this meticulously prepared fuel and ramps it up to those extreme pressures we talked about. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey, and I will see you in the next analysis.